Instagram influencer was found mutilated at her boyfriend's home. In July of this year, 21-year-old Augusta Odion was found killed by her boyfriend of 3 years, Benjamin Best, aka Killa Boy. On July 11th, Augusta called her mom to tell her that her and her boyfriend had gotten into an argument. A couple of days passed by and Augusta's mother is unable to get in contact with her or Benjamin, so she contacts her daughter's roommate, and her roommate basically directing her to his home in Lagos, Nigeria. When she arrived at his home, Augusta's car was parked in the front, but the apartment door was locked. Detectives visited the scene and the door had to be forced open. They discovered Augusta's lifeless body with her private parts chopped off, lying in a pool of her own blood. Marks of violence and signs of struggle were detected on her body. Once her body was discovered, Benjamin had confessed to the crimes on his Instagram stories. In a series of Instagram stories, he claimed that he did not mean to kill her, he did not mean to take off her private parts, it was on accident, and he felt really bad for what he had did, and he was going to turn himself in. As the days were passing by, Benjamin still did not turn himself in, and it seemed like the police department went quiet on the case. Augusta's mother broke her silence after the burial, stating that she wanted justice for her daughter since her killer was still walking free. Once Benjamin had found out about this, he started trash-talking Augusta's mom on Instagram stories, stating that she was evil and that if it wasn't for her, Augusta would be alive. He also claimed that her mom was the reason that they had problems in their relationship, but honestly, I think he was just looking for someone else to blame. On October 20th, Benjamin was finally arrested at a nightclub after changing his name and passport with a new identity.
Super quick singular receipt on how this temporary ceasefire was always trash. Yesterday, these 2 children in Janine were directly pew-pewed and unalived. The boy in the white shirt is Adam Al Ghul. The boy in the blue shirt is 9 years old, and the English translations of his name are not consistent, so here they are. Sometimes it says Basil Abu Wafa, and sometimes it says Baal Abu Wafa. There is footage of them unaliving this 9-year-old. There's footage of him after he's no longer alive. And I hope you're seeing that they're releasing these child hostages that they took from Palestine and were keeping without charges, without any due process. Some of them for a frickin' decade, right? And they've arrested, abducted just as many in the last couple days to make up for it. I don't see how there's any excuse for anyone supporting these child killers at this point.
This is one of the worst and most tragic cases of the 2000s, and definitely a reminder to prioritize mental health. Dena Schlasser was married to a man named John, and they had 2 children. John refused to let Dena go to work and was also physically abusive at times. They started to attend a church called Water of Life, and the preacher Doyle Davidson thought he was a prophet. Davidson preached that all mental illnesses were the work of demons and discouraged his parishioners from taking medication of any kind. Dena had been on antipsychotic medication for years, and after they started attending this church, John forced her to stop taking it. Because medication works, Dena started experiencing psychotic episodes without it, and they got so severe that CPS had to get involved. Despite the fact that CPS ruled that Dena was not allowed to be alone with her children, her husband John refused to get her any psychiatric help. It was around this time that Dena gave birth to their 3rd child, Margaret, and afterwards she suffered severe postpartum depression. It was so severe that she attempted to take her own life just a day after Margaret was born and had to be put into an institution. Then on November 22nd, 2004, Dena said she saw a news story about a lion mauling a young boy and took it as a sign from God. She then claimed that God told her to remove her 11-month-old daughter's arms and then her own. She did remove Margaret's arms and attempted to remove her own. When the police found her, she was singing a hymn and saying, "Thank you, Jesus, thank you, Lord," over and over again. Margaret did not survive, and Dena was admitted to a psychiatric facility after being found not guilty by reason of insanity. She and John divorced, and she was in and out of inpatient facilities until December of 2020, when it was ruled that she had to be inpatient full-time to be sure she takes her medication. So could this insane tragedy have been avoided?
What the fuck? Is this thing on?
"19-year-old Melanie Stephanie Rios Camacho from Firebaugh, California, went missing after leaving her job at AutoZone on November 24th. She had informed her mother she was meeting friends, but she was actually going to see her ex-boyfriend, as confirmed by her friend and co-worker. When she didn't return home and missed work, her mother reported her missing. Shortly after, a witness spotted Camacho's car partially on fire. Further details emerged when a witness reported seeing a blue Ford Mustang near where Camacho's car was found ablaze. Through the vehicle description, deputies were led to 22-year-old Jose Lopez Hernandez of Madera. After serving a search warrant at Hernandez's residence, he was taken in for questioning. Ultimately, detectives were led to an orchard where they discovered human remains believed to be Camacho. Though it will take time to confirm, detectives are confident the remains are hers. Investigators identified 23-year-old Vicente Jasso, Camacho's ex-boyfriend of 3 months, as the primary suspect. He led law enforcement on a high-speed chase before being apprehended and booked on various charges, including homicide. Camacho's family has started a GoFundMe to cover the expenses for her funeral services.
Young Thug's lawyer has started something wild, because rappers are now coming out claiming that the words that they use mean something completely different as well. For example, French Montana now says that Coke Boys, which is the name of his record label and multiple mixtapes, actually stands for Creation of Kings Everywhere. Damn, maybe we got the whole industry misunderstood.
A teen couple who killed the dad, the girl's dad, because they didn't like, the dad didn't like them being in a relationship. The way they snitched on themselves was crazy. The dad, obviously, there was a white girl and like a Mexican boy. They're like 18, 60. The mom and dad didn't like them being together, and they banned the girl from seeing the boy. All of a sudden, after they applied that rule onto her, dad goes missing, right? So the mom, there's a phone call recorded of the mom. Oh, it's been 2 days. I don't know where my husband's at. My friends have called, his ex-wife has called, the police has called. They don't know where he is. The dad's friends come into their house and start looking everywhere. Fam, the dad is dead in the garage. What the fuck? So apparently he got stabbed a bunch of times, and his body was set on fire. It was the daughter and the boyfriend. And the way they snitched on themselves, there's a video of them that the police caught on their phone. Also, it's so dark. What they do? It's so dark. Just listen to what he says.
Heart's just goofing around until this.
Damn, they're young.
Day 3 after murdering somebody.
Whoa.
Put that on the camera. Let's talk about it. Should owners of exotic pets be held responsible when their pets attack? A family in Shelby County, Alabama is about to find out after their wolf hybrid attacked and killed their infant. This past Thursday, around 1 p.m., 911 received a frantic call from the family after the dog attacked. The infant, who was alive when first responders arrived, was taken to Grandview Medical Center but died shortly thereafter. The animal, which was classified as a canine with wolf lineage, was euthanized at the scene by a veterinarian. The animal was then taken to the Alabama State Diagnostics Laboratory for further testing. Law enforcement said they're waiting on autopsy results before they file any criminal charges, if they decide to. The mayor of Chelsea, Alabama said, quote, "We are deeply saddened by this unfortunate and tragic event. We lift up the family and all those affected with our deepest prayers and thoughts," end quote. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, though. Should the owners of exotic pets be legally responsible for their actions?
They took this picture. They noticed this one woman who was standing out. Her face was tilted in a most odd way, creeping everybody who saw it out. We all know that normal people do not take pictures like this at all. She almost looked possessed in this photo. But then people noticed, oh, somebody just edited out the picture and made it look that creepy. Well, here's the normal photo. Believe it or not, majority of the people who seen this photo still was creeped out by the normal looking photo, because if you look deeper into her eyes, if you just look deeper and deeper into her, she just still looks creepy.
You guys have to stop what you're doing and watch this documentary with me. Love Is One is one of the craziest cult documentaries I've ever seen. The cult was founded by this woman, Amy Carlson, who referred to herself as Mother God. And this is actual footage of when she was found in a mummified state wrapped in Christmas lights with her eyes missing. The whole series is so bizarre, and I can't believe these people actually believe the things that they're saying. The involvement of Robin Williams really threw me off. There's interview with members and a lot of video footage because they were recording themselves all the time. I just can't get over the way this woman's health deteriorated throughout the series. All of the episodes are available to watch on Max. If you guys have been watching, let me know what you think.
Imagine if you had a habit of spying on your neighbor from across the street. Except one night you see an old woman strangling your neighbor to death and she notices you watching her. So she quickly exits your neighbor's building and starts running directly towards you. Before you can even lock the door, she breaks into your apartment, revealing her inhuman smile and that she's actually much larger than the door itself. But all you can do is stare in horror as you're slowly cornered. This short film is called Intruders, and there's actually 3 parts of the story. In part 1, you see a boy staring at the body of an old woman after her house was vandalized. In part 2, you see the young man spying on his neighbor and being chased by the woman. And in part 3, an inspector shows up to the house that was vandalized in part 1 and realizes he isn't alone. So what exactly is in the house with him? And how are the 3 parts of the story connected? There were a few tense and scary scenes involved, so I definitely think it's worth checking out. But let me know what you thought and follow for more.
Never thought that I'd be able, to have a pregnancy and to have a baby. Like, oh my gosh, like such a miracle, such a sweet, sweet miracle.
Meet Emma Red Gibson, a baby making history. Her proud mom, Tina, who is just 26 years old, carried an embryo conceived just 1.5 years after her own birth.
If this embryo was born when it was supposed to be, like, we could have been best friends. I was like, we could have been friends. And he just thought that was so funny. So that's been like the going joke. And I mean, it's just so crazy.
With the hopes of becoming parents, the couple went through the process at the National Embryo Donation Center, not knowing the embryo they had chosen had been frozen for more than 2 decades. Carol Sommerfeld, the lab director, says seeing this record-setting embryo result in a successful birth has proven technology and advancements over the years have worked.
I see miracles happen every day.
On average, transferring 120 to 150 embryos a year, this one was the oldest. The Gibsons say they don't think for 1 second it was all a coincidence.
Such a miracle that, this, I think she was chosen for us. Just perfect. I don't think we chose her. I think she was chosen for us.
The embryo was implanted in a procedure similar to in vitro fertilization. The previous record for a frozen embryo was 20 years old.
What? Look in there, mate. Look in there. What? Look in there.
Alan Greenberg's case has just been closed again, with experts calling it a roadmap on how to get away with murder. If you know the case, you know Ellen's fiancé found her on their kitchen floor with a 10-inch knife lodged in her heart. It was concluded that she practically defied science and somehow did all of this to herself. With the second closing of the investigation, we know that on January 26th, Ellen actually should have been teaching. There was a snowstorm that day in Philadelphia, so her first grade class got out early, and she was unexpectedly back at she and her fiancé's apartment. The couple had just sent out the save-the-date invitations for their August wedding 4 days before. As we know, Ellen would make sure her kids got home safe and filled her tank all the way up before returning home to Samuel. They presumably spent all afternoon at their apartment together, or at least up until 4:45 when everything went wrong. Around this time, Samuel says he left to go work out, reportedly returning just 30 minutes later to a locked door. He would text Ellen several times to open it, but with no response or help from security, he eventually broke it down himself. Just inside, Samuel would tragically find his fiancée slumped over their kitchen cabinets. He first suggested to a 911 operator that she may have slipped or fell, somehow not realizing until 2.5 minutes in that there was that knife sticking out of her chest. At Ellen's funeral 2 days later, her father would publicly reveal that the medical examiner had ruled her death a homicide. This obviously became a problem for police because with Samuel's cooperation, they had treated the scene as though she took her life. As in, the kitchen was fully cleaned and his family had taken her electronics before they could even come back with a search warrant. Now, from here, conveniently, authorities announced that they were, quote, going to look into Ellen's ongoing mental issues. The extent of that was anxiety, but regardless, they held a meeting with the medical examiner examiner's office and the homicide ruling was overturned. Since Ellen's death, expert after expert has testified that her physically and physiologically not being able to do this to herself is just the beginning. Reportedly, there were also post-mortem wounds, signs of strangulation, and the knife was found gripped in her non-dominant hand. There were also blood spatters in the wrong directions, changing stories, and the simple fact that only 1 to 3% of people take their life in this manner. Last month, in a 2-to-1 ruling, the state announced that they have no choice but to uphold the conclusion that Ellen took her life. They've denied Sam's involvement, who is now married with kids and has never given a public interview. Again, it's being called the perfect crime.
There's a really strange missing persons case happening right now that everybody should be talking about. This is Nancy Ng. She went missing during a yoga retreat to Guatemala last month. The details in this case are bizarre because it involves a whole group of people who basically witnessed Nancy go missing, yet most of them refused to talk to authorities. So on October 14th, Nancy left her home in Monterey Park, California to go on a week-long yoga retreat to Lake Odion. This would have been her second year in a row doing this, and it was just something that she was really excited about because she loved the area and it was supposed to be just really relaxing. But just a few days into the trip, the organizer of the retreat called Nancy's family and told them that she disappeared. She was officially reported missing on October 20th, but the few details that we do have are really strange. Nancy was seen for the last time in this video, which was taken on October 19th. She was paddling on a kayak on Lake Odion and happily waving to someone off camera. She was with a group of 9 other tourists who traveled to Guatemala for the retreat as well. Nancy was last seen splitting up from the group with another woman to continue kayaking up the lake. According to that woman, the two paddled for roughly another mile before Nancy jumped into the lake and either drowned or disappeared. The woman said she then paddled back to the group, where they then all went back to the hotel where they were all staying and notified management. And when the hotel staff searched for Nancy and couldn't find her, that's when they called the police to report her missing. But this is when things start to get strange. According to the kayak company, who recently made a statement, all 9 of the other tourists in that retreat returned home the day Nancy disappeared. They all reportedly left the lake without saying a word, and they all checked out of the hotel within 12 hours and never paid for the excursion. On top of that, almost all of the witnesses in that retreat group have chosen not to come forward and talk with police. They never gave any witness statements, and they haven't been forthcoming with any information, which has severely hindered the investigation. Guatemalan officials searched the lake and Nancy's hotel room, but they suspended the search after just 3 days after finding no evidence. According to them, the weather made it difficult and affected the search. They believe Nancy drowned that day, and because there's no sense of any urgency to continue looking for her, this forced Nancy's family to hire an independent search and rescue team called Black Wolf Helicopters. They've been the only ones to extensively search the lake and surrounding areas for any clues as to what may have happened to Nancy. They've searched 95% of Lake Odion using helicopters, boat teams, and divers, but Nancy is still missing, and because not really anyone in the group is coming forward to talk with police, they stated that it should now be considered a criminal investigation. The woman's identity, who was last seen with Nancy, has not been released to the public that I can find, but according to Nancy's family, they know who she is, and they've even tried reaching out to her multiple times for some answers. Yet that woman has refused to speak with them. And what's also strange is that this woman reportedly told Guatemalan officials that Nancy drowned that day, but that witness statement is nowhere in the official police report. So at this point, with no one coming forward and suspicious witnesses with key information that's being withheld, nobody knows what to think. The FBI is now investigating Nancy's disappearance, and her family has since hired a lawyer in Guatemala to investigate whether or not she actually drowned. Unfortunately, Black Wolf Helicopters have since had to suspend their search, but they're demanding that someone in the group come forward to at least tell them where Nancy went into the lake, because it would be incredibly helpful to at least have a starting point. This situation is an absolute nightmare. I've attached a GoFundMe created for Nancy's family to help them continue funding the search, because as of right now, most of the search and rescue operations have been primarily funded by them, which is not fair at all. Any funds raised will go towards the search as well as travel expenses for the family, as they're wanting to be in Guatemala as much as possible. It's now been 3 weeks since Nancy went missing. It's time to find her.
One of the most influential but controversial figures in American history died yesterday at 100 years old. And what's so mind-blowing to see is how the same man is simultaneously being regarded by some as one of the world's most notorious war criminals, but by others as a man who brought amity, even winning the Nobel Peace Prize in 1973. So what the hell's going on? You see, Henry Kissinger was the US Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, which was a position that gave him enormous sway over US foreign policy. And this influence that he had was during the time with the Cold War with Russia, Vietnam War, Cambodia, coup in Chile. Let's just say that at a time where the US military was highly active. Because of this, the decisions he made quite literally shaped history. Some see it as a positive shaping, but others, like the people at Rolling Stones, not so much. Their article read, Henry Kissinger, war criminal beloved by America's ruling class, finally dies. On the positive side, he was praised for helping finally bring the US and China together, ending decades of isolation and mutual hostility. He helped relax tensions between the Soviet Union and the US, which led to several arms control agreements, possibly preventing nuclear war, and conducting the first shuttle diplomacy in the quest for peace in the Middle East. However, on the negative side, over the years, Kissinger was also subject to scathing criticism from those who accused him of putting rivalry with the Soviets over human rights, supporting repressive regimes across the world, which led to the deaths of thousands of people, approving a campaign which led to the dropping of more than 2 million tons of bombs on Cambodia, a neutral country, killing hundreds of thousands and displacing millions. When faced with these accusations and criticisms from people, he said that's a reflection of their own ignorance. And his counsel was still sought by dozens of US presidents from John F. Kennedy to Joe Biden, as well as many US lawmakers. But this is the wildest part. A year before he died, he was asked whether he would take back any of his decisions, and he replied, I've been thinking about these problems all my life. The recommendations I made were the best of which I was then capable.
Hi, my name is Augusta and I'm a brand influencer, a content creator. I love creating content because I love the thrill of it and I love entertaining you.
Hey crime babes, I'm sad to report that she was recently brutally stabbed and murdered by her boyfriend in Nigeria, and here is the news clip.
Breaking
Benjamin
news.
Best, boyfriend to Nigerian influencer Augusta Odion, better known as Osta, has confessed to killing her just a week after her death. Best, also known as Killer Boy, who confessed to the murder on his Instagram page, revealed that he and his late girlfriend got into a fight over an undisclosed issue and he mistakenly stabbed her. He revealed that she stabbed him first before he retaliated. Osedion's body was found at Best's apartment in Lagos. He, however, denied claims of mutilating his girlfriend's corpse after being accused of using sports and crypto trades as cover-up for alleged fetish practices. Killer Boy said he deeply regrets what he did and will also accept the death penalty. He also confirmed that he has contacted Augusta's mother and will turn himself in. Police are presently investigating the murder, but no charges have been filed.
Here's a few Instagram posts he made as well. It's crazy as hell that he's not locked up or even charged. I'm not sure how the rules work over there in Nigeria, but hopefully she gets some justice.